Investor. This is episode 6, and today we're going to be talking about how to house hack. I'm joined with my friend Jeandy from what's your podcast again?
Day One
Day
Podcast.
One Podcast. We're going to be talking about how to house hack. He's interested in buying a property, so we're going to kind of just going to run through it from the top. That way, if you have questions, and anyone in the audience may have similar questions, so we can kind of talk about it and see what the process of house hacking is like. First, my brother, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Right, excellent.
I'm looking forward to the game you about to drop.
Yes, yes. So I think where we should start is, I guess, for you, why would you like to get a property?
Why would I like to get a property?
Yes.
Simple. We all get tired of just paying rent, but also we want to be in a position where we could elevate, put ourselves in a better position where we could prosper.
Right.
That's why my investment company is called Prosper Heights, helping individuals prosper to a different height.
Okay.
I'm from Washington Heights, so I brought those two names in contact and made something blossom.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So that's great. That's good to know. So I'm gonna put on my realtor hat real quick and kind of just tell you what the process is like when I'm working with a buyer who is looking to buy a property. So first of all, what we're really looking for is to get an understanding of exactly what you're looking for, kind of like what you told me. Everyone is a little bit different, but for me, I like to I don't try to, I help first-time home buyers become investors. So I'm looking for people who want to house hack, who are looking for multifamily properties. That way, that property could actually be an asset to them and not a liability. Typically, if you're buying a single family home, it's actually a liability, right? You have to pay money every month for that mortgage, and it's on you to do that. Now, when you have a multifamily or an investment property, you're using those rents to pay down that debt, to pay down that mortgage. So someone else is paying it down. So it's actually an asset and it's yielding income.
Yeah.
So when I first sit down with somebody to do a buyer consultation, I ask them what I just asked you, right? What is your motivation? Why do you want to buy a property? The second part is we really kind of need to drill down in what is exactly that you're looking for, what area you're looking for, and then we're also going to drill down at some point, what is your budget? What is your financing? How do you plan to pay for it? Because that's really important to see, what markets we're looking at to see if everything lines up, if you may need a co-signer or if you may need additional funding from other investors. So let's start there. Give me an idea of the areas that you're looking for and what type of property that you're looking for as well.
I mean, when it comes to properties, I would like North Jersey.
Okay.
Local around here. I'll see myself staying in Jersey also, and multifamily units, but also more like it has 4 floors, and I believe it's called a foyer. It's like it's separate.
You walk in a little entranceway.
Yeah, so that way it's like every door is lead. Like there's 3 doors here, so that could be first floor, second floor, third floor. So that way we don't even see each other. It's like a little privacy. I value privacy and alone time.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So first, I'm going to give a quick explanation of what house hacking is. House hacking is simply when you have a property, you live in one unit, and then you rent out the other units. Now, ideally, you want to do this with a 4-family property because you're going to live in one of the first unit, and the second, third, and fourth unit, you're going to rent out. So now you're collecting income, right? That's the simple definition of house hacking. Now, what's great about house hacking is when you're going to get approved for like a mortgage, they can actually use the rental incomes from those other units to add to your income to help you qualify for another amount. And there's other programs that you can do as well. You can go FHA. FHA is where they'll help you as far as a down payment. You don't have to put down the typical 20% when you purchase a property. If you're an investor, you got to put down typically 20 or 25%. As a first-time home buyer, FHA loan, you could put a little as down as 3.5%. And in some cases, you could even finance that 3.5% down into your loan. So you may not actually have to put up anything for the down payment. Now, when they do that, what they do is they actually give you a higher rate. So the rate goes up a little bit, but let's say you're short on cash, but you make good income, right? Now you can have them raise the rate a little bit, which is going to lower the amount that you can get approved. But now you don't have to worry about bringing that down payment to the closing table because it's financed into the loan. So, we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So the next question is what areas, all right? What market are you really trying to buy in, live in?
When it all comes to which one is more beneficial, like win-win,
Right.
At the end of the day, I live by saying that you got to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. I don't seek comfort, but I know we all have to make sacrifices in order to go to places where we don't want to go.
Exactly. So you mentioned North Jersey, and you actually, we talked briefly earlier about some of the areas that you're looking at. We talked about Passaic, we talked about Clifton, Patterson. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of an overview of what's going on in the market right now. So there's actually very low inventory when it comes to multifamily. Low inventory in general in the North Jersey market, but multifamily specifically because of the income producing asset, it makes it very attractive for anyone looking to buy a home because again, now it's not a liability, it's an asset. But the other issue is you're also competing with just investors, right? Now, the advantage that you have as, let's say, you're not going to go in as an investor and you're going to go in as a first time home buyer is you get to go FHA. So what that does is you may pay a little bit more than the investor will pay, right? An investor is looking for a discounted price, so that way, they may do like a value add or different things to make the property increase in value, but they're really trying to get a lower price to make it really make the numbers make sense. But since you're going FHA, your down payment is lower, so you may actually pay a higher price, and you're going to get a favorable rate. An investor may be 7.5%, 8%, where you coming in as FHA, you might get 6.5%, right? 6%. So now the numbers are actually better for you. And one thing I did want to touch upon with the FHA is there's something called an FHA streamline loan. But basically what that is let's say today you go buy a house, and right now, just so everyone knows, it's November 6th. We just had the election yesterday, and we're actually going to have a Fed meeting tomorrow where they discuss interest rate. But today, on average, the 30-year mortgage is about 7.5% interest rate. Now, what that means is, if you go buy a mortgage right now, typically 20% down, they're going to charge you 7.5%. Now, if you do FHA, typically the rate's a little bit lower. So you may be at like, let's say 6 or 6.5% for the FHA. But let's say you lock in today, you go buy $800,000 house today at 6.5%, your mortgage payment is, I don't know, $5,000, let's say. With the FHA Streamline loan, you can go back to your lender after 210 days, and if the rate has dropped by 0.5%, you can actually refinance for free. Typically, when you refinance, you have to pay like the closing costs and basically do the loan all over again. But since you have FHA, you can get a streamlined loan and you don't actually pay anything, right? So you can go from, let's say, when you bought the house, the rate was 6.5%, but 210 days later, now the rate has dropped to 6%. You can go to your bank and say, hey, the rate has dropped. I want to do the FHA streamline loan. They're not going to pull your credit this time. They're not going to do an appraisal on the house. They're literally just going to say, okay, we're going to pull title, which is just to make sure that like you actually own the property, and they'll set up a closing date. And then now you get to drop your rate, right? And then when you drop your rate, your payments actually should come down as well, right? Because now the amount of money that you're borrowing is the same, but the interest is lower. So you can actually lock in your price that you're paying, but now get the rate lower. Because what's going to happen is as the Fed raises rates over the next year and a half, you're going to see rates come down, but that's actually going to force prices up. Because when somebody is buying a property, I'm not going to say they don't care what the price is, but they're actually more concerned about what the monthly payment is, right? So if their monthly payment is, let's say, $5,000 a month, that's the most that they can afford. What happens is, let's say rates drop from 6.5% to 6%. Now they could actually, now the amount that they'll pay will drop from, let's say, 5,000 to 4,600. So they're actually going to save 400. Or let's say at 5,000, the most they can get approved for was $800,000 home. If the rate drops 0.5%, now they may get approved for $850,000 home. So what's going to happen as rates drop, as long as the supply remains the same, you're going to see house prices actually rise and continue to go up. So there's actually less people in the market right now because of the high rates. But as you see rates come down, more people are going to come into the market, and then you're going to have more bidding wars and people going higher and higher than asking. So that's kind of like what we're dealing with right now in the market as far as multifamily. So that's kind of wanted to give you kind of that background and kind of explain some of that. Now, did you have any questions about kind of all the stuff that I just covered?
Other things that you covered, to be honest, getting up here, I just wanted to see from your experience.
Yeah.
I like learning from others' experience and just soaking all that in, because you did give me a lot of information.
Yes.
So, but I understood that with the FHA, there's a lot of advantage. That's what I understood. Like, the cards are in your favor. But just a question, when it comes to house hacking, what what would you do if you could go back in time to when you bought your first
All
property?
right, so I'll tell you exactly what I did do. Right, so I bought my first property. What is it? 14, almost 13, 14 years ago now.
Yeah.
It was a three family. The first floor, two bedrooms, one bath. Second floor, two bedrooms, one bath. Third floor, one bedroom, one bath. I chose to live in the one bedroom, one bath because I can get higher rents on the two bedroom, one bath on the
Correct.
second and the first floor. So what I did is at the time I was working at the bank. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was making maybe 35, $40,000 a year. And if I tried to go for a regular single family home, I wouldn't have qualified based upon my income, right? But because of house hacking and being able to use 70% of the rental incomes for the first floor and second floor, I
Mm,
was actually able to get approved for the property. And I did do FHA, 3.5% down, but I had to put a low down payment. And since I didn't have the money, I think I needed like 20 grand at the closing table. I didn't have 20 grand at the time. I was only making 35 grand a year, but I was at the bank for about 5 or 6 years at that point, and I had money in my 401k.
mm,
So what I did is I borrowed money against my 401k, the 20,000, and I used that for my down payment and closing costs. So that's actually how I was able to fund it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had even the 3.5% down to actually get into the property.
yeah.
But getting that property allowed me to get a property that was basically cash flowing right away. And at the time when I first rented it out, I was maybe paying a couple $100 out of my pocket. But as the years have gone by, now the tenants pay the entire mortgage, right? So that's the value of house hacking. And when you're buying real estate, there's two things that are happening. Typically the price of the value of the house is going up, but more importantly, the debt that you owe is getting paid down by the
Correct.
tenants, not by you. And that appreciation is what you're seeing over time is really valuable and actually the real value of real estate. Now, it does take time for that to happen. So you're not going to get rich off of one property, but you can build wealth over 10, 20, 30 years with just a few properties. Right. So that's how I got my first property. And that's actually why I liked working with multifamily and why I like to help first time home buyers become investors, because that's actually what I did. Now I
Mm,
have multiple properties and I'm going to continue to buy properties as well. So that's kind of the mindset that I had and what I would, recommend for the first time home buyers. Well, I know a lot of times when people are buying a house, they really want to get that, white picket fence and get the nice house and get their dream home.
yeah.
But the dream home is a liability unless something else is paying for it. You're going to use the dream business to pay for your dream home and get your dream house, car, and things like that. So my recommendation for anyone would be is hold off, delay the gratification of getting that single family house unless you have a need, like you got a family, you really need it. Get a multifamily, get the income producing asset, and then use that to pay for the house that you really want. Well, that's kind of the thought process
Yeah.
behind house hacking.
And what are some things that you see that like use me as an example? What any advice or what things have worked for you that you take into consideration when taking that route?
All right. So what I'm looking at is just the numbers, right? Do the numbers make sense from 2 points? One, will the bank, give
Mm,
me the mortgage and say that I can afford it? And do I feel comfortable making those payments as well? So at this point, any deal that I look at, I'm just looking strictly from a numbers perspective. If the numbers make sense, I will consider it. If the numbers don't make sense, I won't consider it. So I would just say look at every property, every deal in a way where you're analyzing it and seeing if it makes sense for you. Because the bank sometimes they'll approve you for like, let's say, $6,000, $7,000 a month for your
yeah.
mortgage payment, but maybe you don't feel comfortable with a $6,000, $7,000 a month mortgage. So you're gonna look for a property where maybe it's 5,000 or 4,000 or a number that you're actually comfortable with. And then that way, you have a little bit more peace of mind. That's what I would say about that.
Let's say one used the FHA loan now. How would you go about it without the FHA loan?
Okay.
Obviously, as an investor perspective.
Right. So now let's look at it from an investor perspective. That's the numbers have to make even more sense, right?
Mm,
Because from an investor perspective, you don't actually technically have to live there, right? When you're doing it from FHA, the reason why they're giving you those discounted rates, the reason why they're giving you a little bit easier loan is because you're making it your primary residence, you're living there. Once you go to an investor, they're going to want you to put 20, 25% down. You don't have to live there. and you're going to be paying a higher rate. So the numbers actually become a lot more important. And you're looking at it strictly from a cash on cash perspective. How much money am I putting up versus how much money the property is bringing in? When do I plan on getting my return on investment? How long is that going to be? 10 years, 15 years, and things like that. So I know you sent me a property, so we could actually look at a deal, and we'll actually look at it from both perspectives, whether you're going to go FHA or whether you're going to go investor. So I'm going
Yeah.
to pull it up real quick so we can take a look at it. So real quick, the property that you sent me, it was a property in Clifton. I don't know if it's still on the market, but it was a two-family in Clifton. They wanted $800,000 for it, and I believe it was East First Street in Clifton, right?
Right.
347 East First Street in Clifton. If you want to look it up and run the numbers.
I feel like it's a good property for any investor.
Yes. So let's take a look at it from two perspectives. First, we'll look at it from the traditional investor perspective, where you're
Okay.
putting 20% down and you're gonna, just buy the property like that. And then we'll look at it from the FHA perspective. So
Before we go into that question, has there ever been like a property that you see that you could do renovations to, whether it's add a bathroom, or have you ever been in a position that you had to break the roof and make the attic a little bit more fitting in a way?
yeah, so those are called value adds, where you're buying a property and there's work that needs to be done. There's things that need to be updated, and by doing those things, you actually make the value of the property go up. And
For sure.
if you can do that, that's actually the way to go. If you want to find like a really a beat up property, if you're really trying to invest, and you want to find something that's beat up, and you really want to add that value, right? Fix a bathroom, add a room, do the floors, and just make it nicer, because then you could actually increase the rents as well. So, I know the property that you mentioned, you liked it because it had a basement where you could possibly add a living unit where you would possibly live.
Right.
So let's take a look at the numbers on this property. It's $800,000. I put in the interest rate 7.5. I have 7.25, but I'll change it to 7.5 because that's roughly what you're going to get. And when we look at this deal, what's also important to look at when you're buying a multifamily is what you're going to be able to collect in rents, right? So right now, roughly in Clifton, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, on average, $2,700 a month, depending on the condition. Could be a little bit more, a little bit less, how much space, but roughly $2,700, maybe $3,000, a little bit higher on the higher end. So when you're looking at that, that means that you're going to be bringing in about $5,400 a month for those 2 units. Now, from an investor perspective, think about it like this. The taxes on that property are $13,600, which is about $1,000 a month. You're going to have insurance. Insurance is roughly going to be $3,600 a month, maybe a little bit less. Insurance prices have actually gone up pretty dramatically over the past couple of years, so you do have to factor that in. And then you also are going to have, pay the water bill that comes in. That's roughly maybe $75 or $100 a month. So you factor that in, and then you also want to factor in vacancies and maintenance. Vacancies just means that if you have a tenant in there and they leave at the end of their lease, it might take you a month or two before you actually get it rented out again. And that time when it's not rented, you still got to pay the
responsible.
mortgage, right? So you want to factor that in, and you want to put money aside for vacancies. That way, when it is vacant and that mortgage payment is there, you already have that money sitting ready to go. So you want to factor between 5 to 10% of the monthly income that you're collecting to go towards vacancy. Also, 5 to 10% you want to put aside to put towards maintenance. Things break in houses, right? You need a new hot water heater. You may need to replace, so whatever it may be. So you want to have that money put aside. So as these things arise, it's not like you're scrambling trying to figure out where you're going to get the money to put it. So every month, as you're collecting those rents, you want to put a little bit of this money aside, a little bit of this money aside. So as we look at this deal here, you're collecting $5,400 a month, $13,600 in taxes, $3,600 a year in property insurance, and about $100 a month for your water, and 5 to 10% in vacancy. I put 5% here and 5% for maintenance. So when we look at this, your monthly mortgage payment comes to about $4,474. That does not include your taxes. That does not include your homeowner's insurance. Does not include your water bill. So, but the mortgage itself is 4,000 for 4,000, basically 4,500. Once we add all those things in, now your payment actually rises to about 5,700, right? But you're collecting 5,400, right? And then when you factor in all like the maintenance as well, you actually be losing about $1,100 every month on the property. You bought it for $1,000 with a 7.5% mortgage. So from an investor, this is with putting 20% down as well. Your down payment would be $160,000. So your loan would be 640. You'd be putting down 160, totaling 800,000, and then every month you'd be paying roughly around $5,700. And then with all the fees and everything, and let's say that, by the way, this is not you hiring a property manager. Well, you would be doing the management. You still be paying out of your pocket 1,000, basically $200 a month. So because of that, would you buy this deal? Would you buy this property?
Nah.
No, right? So the numbers don't make sense from an investor perspective to pay that price for that property. Now we'll look at it from the FHA side, right? It's going to be very similar. It's not going to change too much, but the difference is on here I have for the rate instead of 7.5, 6.25. We're putting down 3.5%. So before we were putting down $160,000, right? In this scenario, same purchase price, 800,000, but now since you're doing FHA, 3.5%, you only have to put down 28,000, right? So that is one advantage, big advantage from the FHA right there, is that you don't have to put down an extra $130,000. So that's one really huge advantage, and why, as a first-time home buyer, as a first-time investor, using your FHA is powerful because you don't need as much capital to actually buy the property. Now, we still have to look at the property and see if the numbers make sense, but now when we look at this property and we put in $2,700, you're going to be living in one unit though, right?
Yeah.
So now instead of getting $2,700 for each unit, you're actually really only getting $2,700 for one. But now go ahead.
That's what I'm referring to. The basement. It has like two separate sides.
Right.
One side has a bathroom, but the other side, I feel as if it's perfect enough for a bathroom and you have your own, it's like a little studio.
Yes.
But meanwhile, the other side, you could rent that side. So now you have all three sides rented out and you lived in one. So that the basement, you could put that for, let's say, $1,000.
Okay. So
somebody would take that's a steal.
So now let's run the numbers on that, right? Let's say we have the first floor rented out, second floor rented out. You finish the basement, both sides. You're going to live in one side of the basement and the other side that you're going to rent out, let's say, for $1,000. Now the question is, how much does it cost to finish that basement, right? Maybe 20, 30, 40,000. It's going to really depend on how detailed you want to get with the property. But let's say it's going to cost you 30 grand, 40 grand. Let's say 30 grand, right? Keep a little bit. So now your total all-in cost is 830,000. Now the thing is, FHA may be able to give you a loan for that 30,000 to the renovations. That would be an FHA 203K, but you just have to qualify. But let's say you do qualify, right? And they're going to give you, now your purchase price changed to 830,000, right? Because they're going to give you 800,000 to buy the property and another $30,000 for the renovation. But we'll put it all in. Now your down payment only goes up by like $1,000. So it's 29,000 versus 28,000. But now when we punch in the numbers, $2,700 for the first unit, $2,700 for the second unit, $1,000 for the basement, and then now you're going to live in one unit, right? Now your total rent is $6,400, right? You're getting $2,700, $2,700, and $1,000, right? So let's look at the deal now. When we look at the numbers and we punch in all those things, not too much changes. Now your mortgage payment is going to be $4,500, not including your taxes and your property taxes. When you add those things in, you're looking at about roughly $6,500 for your mortgage payment, maybe $6,600 for your mortgage payment, but you're collecting $6,400. Right. So now
still not that
out of
big
your
range.
pocket, though, you're paying $200, $300. Now, would that deal be something that you'd be interested in at that point?
I feel like there's other I could weigh other options, see other things, you know?
Yes. So this, if you did all this, would actually be a deal that I would actually still recommend looking at,
Why?
right? Because you are actually only paying $200-300 a month, right, to live there.
Yeah.
Where I don't know how much you're paying right now, but most places you're going to be paying minimum 1,000, right? So if you can change your living cost from 1,000, let's say $200 a month, that really helps, right? And then I told you about the FHA streamline loan, right?
Mhm.
If in 210 days, let's say the rate drops from 6.25 to 5.75, now your mortgage is basically you live there for free. Now that $200 kind of goes away and you don't really pay anything to live there. And then that's kind of also what you would want the property for as well. Don't worry about it.
Everything all over the place, man. But
Yeah.
I know we got to wrap this up. But one question to you that I would love to know is, what's the biggest lesson you have learned when it comes to real estate and house hacking specifically, since we're on that topic?
Biggest lesson I've learned when it comes to house hacking and just real estate is you typically make the money when you buy the property,
Mm,
right? So you want to buy it at a price where it makes sense, because if you buy it with basically meat on the bones and there's actually money
mm,
to be made, later on when you sell it, it's the money's going to be there, the value is going to be there. But if you overpay at first, you're never really going to be able to
mm,
make the property work unless you get creative. You have to do things like Airbnb, renting out all the rooms to get a little bit more income to make it make sense. But you want to buy it at a price where it really makes sense and at a payment where it makes sense. So that's what I would say is you actually make the money when you buy in real estate. And when it comes to house hacking, if you can live for free, that's kind of the goal, what you're doing when you're house hacking. You
my
want to
goal.
live for free. Ideally, you may make a little bit of money as well. So, but that would be my advice, is try to find a property where you can either live for free or at least lower what your current cost is. Let's say you're paying $2,000 a month where you're living. If you can buy a property and now that cost drops to 1,000 or 500, you're saving basically that money every month that you were already paying to rent out before.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for coming on.
No, of course.
I hope I gave you some information, and I'm gonna send you this sheet as well. And for anybody who is looking to be a first-time home buyer who wants to become an investor, please reach out. I do have this spreadsheet that helps you analyze deals. If you leave a comment, click comment real estate, and I will send you this spreadsheet. That way you can have it, you can analyze deals. If you have any questions, also go ahead and reach out. You can find me on my Instagram at Sam the Realtor. You can reach out also at Sam the Investor. I will go over in detail anything that you need to help you get your first property, or if you're looking for a second property or a multifamily, 10, 20 units, whatever your real estate needs are, reach out and I'll be happy to help. Jeandy, again, thank you for coming.
No, it was my
It's been a
pleasure.
pleasure,
It's my
my
pleasure.
brother.
I look forward to also Sam will be on Day One podcast,
Yes,
turning
please
that
tell
one
them.
day into Day One.
Tell them where they can find you as well.
Day.1.podcast on all platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever. And we're gonna turn that one day into Day One. And we're gonna give them more game on Day One podcast.
Yes, we'll go a little bit more detail and we'll really go into it. But again, thank you guys for joining. If you have, again, any questions, please reach out. I'll be happy to help, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of game. I'm gonna play that.
Yes, I was trying to give as much game